Welcome to Called to Build, the podcast for faith-driven entrepreneurs and kingdom leaders who are ready to build what outlasts them. Hosted by Carl Willis, entrepreneur, pastor, and marketplace missionary. Each episode delivers biblical wisdom, insight, real-world strategy, and bold encouragement to help you lead with purpose, steward with wisdom, and multiply your impact. Because faith and business weren't meant to compete, they were meant to collide. Now, let's step into today's episode. Hey, welcome to Called to Build. So glad you've chosen to join us today. And with me is a friend of mine. We're both agency owners. That's how we met. And this is John Henao. He owns Ewizer and GoStaffy, and GoStaffy is actually how I met him, but he was also one of my agency coaches in the agency world. And so, John, so glad to have you here today.
Super excited to be on your podcast. Hopefully, we can share a lot of value to whoever's listening.
Fantastic, yeah. And today we're going to talk a little bit about business. We're going to talk a little bit about faith. We're going to talk about family, legacy, a whole lot of things. But let's kind of start off, John. You're leading two impactful companies, Ewizer and GoStaffy. And when you think about where you are today, what do you believe you really were called to build?
Yeah, so many years ago, I always dreamed of building community, like build something related with people, impacting people's lives, or building some type of community. And when I started Ewizer, we were being impactful to agency owners, right? And where we're at today, I mean, we started about 3 years ago, we started GoStaffy, and the goal was to just impact lives, create more job opportunities. And we have a very thriving community right now, and we're just, impacting a lot of people's lives. So I think in general, whenever I think about business or where I'm at today, I think about people, community, and loving on them with the service we're giving, with maybe even counseling sometimes, right, with your team members or with people. So that's what I think of when I'm working with anyone.
That's great. And when you talk about, community, I hear you say that word a lot. Has your faith been a part of really shaping that desire for community in the business world and in the agency world and in the things that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a learning meeting that we do every single Thursday. We've been having workshops or learning meetings for the past 3-4 years. And I always try to sprinkle God's love within those meetings. Not every single meeting, but if there's an opportunity where if I'm sharing a topic on self-development or even sharing a topic about life, I always try to sprinkle God's love or maybe throw a Bible verse in the mix. And a lot of people have been noticing, right? And they've been touched by even other Christians that are part of our community. They've noticed, or even non-Christians, and they see something different in us, right? We're not perfect by all means, but that's how it's been played out when it comes to sharing my faith, or even individually, right? If a team member is going through something, they can always reach out to me and say, "Hey, John, I need to talk to you." And the fact that we're showing empathy and really caring about the team. So I think my faith, just knowing, what God did in my life, I can represent that to them by being just a servant leader to them and whatnot.
That's good. Now, let's talk a little bit about, your own faith journey. So, in a past interview, you talked about it was a friend's transformation that actually drew you to Christ. And how has that initial encounter with Jesus shaped your walk as a businessman, as a family man? Talk a little bit about that journey, what initially impacted you, and then, how it's really shaped you moving forward.
Yeah, totally. So in a nutshell, I had a friend that his life was a mess, right? Like, all of our lives are a mess, right? Before we encounter Jesus or just our life with God, right? And when I saw his life change, like I saw something different in him, he drew me to get closer to God. Like he was like, "Hey, John, if if you receive Christ in your heart, kind of did the sinner's prayer one day. We were in a bedroom and led me to Christ, right? And from that day moment, my life started changing little by little. I mean, it's been a while. It's when I was 20 years old, right? And the person who I am today kind of reflects on that decision I made many years ago, right? Because when you start walking with God, it's a journey, right? It's an ongoing journey, and the good thing about it is that the journey is not perfect, right? You're going to have ups and downs, right? Life throws curveballs at you, right? And what makes it different is that you have someone that is backing you up, right? You have a higher being or God that is there for you whenever you have any trouble, and it just makes it a lot easier, um, that you can go back, in prayer, or just read a Bible verse, and that Bible verse speaks to you, and right at the moment that whatever you need or whatever struggle you were going through, that Bible verse that you read, you can apply it to your life, and it can just make the world a lot easier, or that situation a lot easier. So I just the simplicity of having someone or God that you can go to, so that you don't have to carry the burden of the world, or just the struggles, the stress that we go through as agency owners every single day, right?
Yeah. Now, you talk about the starting point. So, friend tells you, hey, this is what you need. You pray in the sinner's prayer there in the bedroom. Here you are 30 years later. What are some of the spiritual disciplines or practices that are keeping you grounded today as a CEO running two companies? How do you make sure that you're keeping your walk with God fresh on a daily basis, that it's not getting put on the shelf and kind of left behind in the tyranny of the urgent of running the day-to-day business and the demands of business and family and all the things that come along with that?
Yeah, so it's having that quiet time every morning, right? And I'm not gonna lie to you, there's times where I skip it, right? Because you were rushing, and things happen, right? And I think it's just really blocking that time in the morning, and really just getting a cup of coffee, and just maybe reading God's word. Even if it's just 20 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is, right? You do your devotional in the morning. That has been key for me. Also, daily walks. That's part of what I do. Usually, just meditating on was I a good leader today, and just me and God just talking. Or I mean, if it's not God, like I'm probably listening to a podcast, right? Like a lot of times, it's not just only the spiritual side. It's good to take those breaks as well, right? But I think going back to the spiritual side, yeah, I would say your daily routine is very important, that you include God in the mix with prayer, reading a little bit of his word, God's word, um, and just having a rhythm. Like I like to read Proverbs, right? Proverbs have 31 days. So usually what I try to do sometimes is whatever day, let's say today's the 5th of August. Well, today is the 7th actually of August. So I'll just, hop into Proverbs chapter 7 and read Proverbs, right? And say, okay, God, what do you want me to learn today, right? How can I apply this to my life? So I think that just having your quiet time, I think is key, so you can be grounded. Um, and just spending time with family, I think it's huge. I think that God doesn't want you to be just working all day, and letting your family just rot, right? So I think
Yeah,
having those crucial times where you're like, okay, it's already 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, normal work. Now it's time to spend with the family as much as you can, right? But sometimes it's not perfect, right? Sometimes we're on the computer at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and we're like, what are we doing, right? So yeah, I think so. Having some type of balance, and dedicating that time to God is important in the morning.
good. Now, so you bring up a good point. So when those times when you should be, focused on prayer, your family, other people, how do you make sure that you're staying present in those moments and not drifting off to the business things that are pressing on your mind?
You mean when I'm doing my quiet time, and
Yeah,
that's me
or
focused on
the quiet time or the family time, or you need to be present in the moment with the people in front of you, or present
100%.
in the moment with God. but in the back of your head is, I got that meeting coming up.
Yeah,
I
totally,
got this
totally.
project I need to be, you know,
Totally. Well, sometimes it's not as easy as said, right? Like where you're like, hey, I'm just going to shut off my phone and just, but I think one of the biggest distractions is probably our phone, right? And I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I mean, I'm not going to say that I have always done this, right? But most of the time, I was really, really good back when my kids were playing sports, right? And this is a good example too, is when I was playing sports or when my kids were playing sports, I would always see the crowd and I would see some dads on their laptops and on their phone. And I'm like, gosh, you're just missing the moment right now. Live the moment right now because you're not going to get that time again, right? So I was very when like I was one of those dads that I said, okay, I'm just going to put my phone away. I don't care who calls me. I don't care, and I'm just going to be engaged. So I think right now what I'm doing now is the same thing. Like when I'm with my wife, watching a movie or just spending time with whatever, then my phone, I just put it away from me. Because I think the biggest distraction is our phone, I would say, and just really honoring that time block, right? If let's say that your day ends at 6 p.m., whatever the time it is, then from 6 p.m. on, you're going to respect, you're going to be living at the moment with your family, with your wife, with your kids. And I think if it's a discipline, right? I think it's a task or a habit that you have to acquire in order not to go back and be jumping back into your emails and responding.
that's good. So let's kind of shift gears here. We'll talk a little bit about systems and strategy. You started Ewizer in 2005. You've scaled it. You niched it primarily into the legal niche. What were some of the pivotal systems or decisions that you made that really helped you unlock growth in that agency and helped you scale it up?
Okay. Yeah. On the agency, I think the most pivotal moment was when we found a few JV partners that had my ideal client. And I think the biggest leverage was relationships, right? I started building relationships with the key the key influencers within my space and just started becoming their friends and just giving them value, right? And one of the things that we did was that we were offering a free service to them, right? We were saying, hey, we will run your Google ads for free. And we just want to make sure, if it works, that we can have some type of alliance where we can offer it to your community and whatnot. And that started. It started a really a nice flow of things. Once we started doing that, we started noticing momentum, right? So that was the biggest. Focusing on the niche, of course. We were focused on family law, personal injury, real estate law, and you do a good job for one client, they're going to refer the next client, especially lawyers. They love the ego and they love to recommend others, right? So word of mouth was key as well. And I would say, well, the videos that I constantly do now, it's more for the GoStaffy side, but I would say being omnipresent, where you're coming out everywhere, I think is huge. But I would say joint ventures was one of the biggest levers that we used in order to grow the agency.
That's good. Now let's shift gears to GoStaffy because that was birthed, more recently. So what led you to launch GoStaffy? What gap, were you seeing in the virtual staffing space that others were missing? So obviously you saw an opportunity. As entrepreneurs, we solve problems. We look for gaps. So what was the gap that you were seeing and really what led you down that road?
Yeah, so we were part of a community, which I'm still am kind most like I am part of that community still. And I noticed that they were not that many options for virtual staff, right? And we had a virtual staffing agency about 3 years ago, which is the same one, and we were focusing on local businesses. So I saw that there was a need where most of the agencies were using other virtual staffing from, let's say, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and just other countries. But I didn't see any of the virtual staffing really using Latin America. So I said, okay, I built my agency with this model. We grew to seven figures, and we were profitable. We launched, And the number one reason why I wanted to launch it was that I really wanted agencies to have more freedom, more profit too, because a lot of times there's some agencies that um, most of their team they're in the US, right? And they're not as profitable. So my job was like, hey, why don't you hire a few people in Latin America that can do pretty much the same as the US person, and you can be a little bit more profitable. So that was the biggest thing. And then of course the passion was to create more job opportunities. My family, my dad is Colombian, my parents are Colombian. So I thought it was more of a passion driven company where we felt, okay, we're creating impact both on the agency side and also on the other side, right? So that was the biggest drivers.
Hmm. Excellent. Now, that brings up the logistical thing. You're having to keep quality high. You're managing a remote team that's largely based in Colombia. So how do you do that? How do you maintain the quality standards, managing that remote team that is based, somewhere else? How have you been able to accomplish that?
Yeah, so I would have to say my team is the number one asset that we have. We have a really good team. We have good systems in place, but it starts from day one, right? Once we really, really vet that team member to make sure that that team member is a rock star. We only hire mid to senior level. So we take them through rigid testing process. We have like three different tests we give them: Kobe assessment, DISC assessment, 16 personalities. And once they pass the testing, we also do an evaluation to make sure that this person fits our core values, right? Because I believe that you don't want to hire someone that has all the skills and they're just a jerk to work with, or they just don't have the right core values, right? So we really do an evaluation, and then the ongoing, like you said, like how do I manage the ongoing is we have, like I said earlier, we have weekly workshops or learning meetings, which that builds retention. We also travel to Colombia every quarter. I travel to Colombia. It is a commitment I've made, and we take out the team members to eat. We rotate in different regions in Colombia, and we've seen that builds stickiness and more retention. Um, but I would say like the whole general aspect of it is that we have a really good team. We have great account managers. We have a great system, and we're constantly communicating with them. I think like the communication side needs to be there in order for all this to work, right? To understand what the partner wants and what the team member wants, right?
That's good. Now let's talk about your client acquisition strategy for a few minutes. Especially, LinkedIn's been a place you've used extensively, and then you talked about you've used relationships in the joint venture side of things to scale organically. Can you kind of elaborate on those a little more? Those have been kind of your go-tos, and how you've utilized those and why you chose those routes particularly.
Yeah, so I not only just LinkedIn, we've used also the social platforms. I think that's been the biggest levers of growth for GoStaffy. And from day one, the videos have been key. Like I don't really promote on the videos. It's more just giving educational content, speaking about pain points. I've been consistent. I think it's hard sometimes to be consistent, but I think I've been pretty consistent in giving a lot of value to the audience that's hearing the videos, right? So I think the videos have been great with social media, just posting videos. Like also, we've been on several podcasts as well. That's helped a lot, and that has created relationships, right? The more you put yourself out there, right? Um, Someone is going to invite you to their podcast, or if you go to an event, right? If you go to an event, I've been going to events. That's another lever where it's been great, right? We went last year to, or this year to, Scale with Stability. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but I met a lot of people there, and just by going to that event, I was able to come up with two new clients, and I wasn't expecting it. I was just giving value, just sharing who we are, and just really just pouring out as much as you can. So I would say in a nutshell is being omnipresent. If you really want to grow any type of business, is being omnipresent, being consistent with either video, podcast, webinars, and then relationships is key, right? If there's some type of event that you can go within your niche, start going to that event as a guest, and then little by little you can even promote the event or get a booth, right? And little by little you put your foot in the door with the opportunities that are going to open up from that.
Good. Now, earlier you mentioned, going out, taking a walk, making that, part of your prayer time or listening to, podcasts, things like that. But I've heard in other interviews you talking about, fitness and disciplines there and long-term health. How does taking care of your body impact your own leadership, as a leader and as a founder of your companies? How have you found that correlation?
Yeah, it's huge. I know some people they're not into fitness that much, so maybe someone could say, "Hey, John, I release stress, or I'm a better leader if I ride my bike every day." Right? So whatever works for you. But for me, I literally work in an office that has no windows. Right? Literally, I'm here with no windows. So I am one of those guys. I'm not a super extrovert, but I'm not an introvert. I'm like in the middle, a little bit more on the extrovert side, and I need to go outside. I need to do something, right, to vent, to be a great leader, right? So what I do is I do exercise. I usually do it in the afternoon. I don't do it in the morning. So I exercise. So like exercise for me gives me the energy that I need to be the leader that shows up, right? There's something about sometimes I walk out of this garage or this office and like there might you know like I might have a huge headache or have a lot of stress on me, and when I walk outside and do a little bit of exercise, I mean literally just instantly the headache goes away, right? And I think it's important to for whoever's watching is that whatever is your thing, in order for you to relieve stress or just get out of the mundane, is very important that you do it, whether it's exercise, riding your bike, walking your dog. It's super important that you do that.
Yeah, that's good. Now, you're both a family man. I see your pictures on social media, so family's a big part of what you do. Um, Business leader, how do you balance business ambition with being available to your family? And especially as your business is growing and there's more opportunity to be busy, um, with the demands of your family as well.
Yeah, and you know what? It's tough sometimes, like really to balance your family with your business, especially when your business is growing and there's momentum going, right? And there's that temptation where you can just say, okay, I'm going to sacrifice a little bit more. And you tell your family, hey, this is only a season. But I think it's important that it's where you prioritize in your calendar, right? I think that if you really want to separate that time with your family, especially vacations and whatnot, it's very important that you put it in the calendar, right? Whether date nights, um, special vacations with your family, and like I said earlier, when you finish work, you have now a few hours after work to try to spend as much as those moments with your family, right? One thing I learned from Dr. James Dobson, which he shared many many years ago, was that he allows his kids to interrupt him whenever, right? Because he says that those moments are never going to return again. Your business will always be there, but those moments with your kids won't be there, right? So I've really tried to keep my antennas up whenever my daughter comes up to me, or if my son says, "Hey, Dad, I want to show you something." It's very easy, that I can say, "Hey, not now. I'm working on something." So I try to be show me what it is. Now, if I'm in a meeting like right now, we're in a podcast and someone, I mean, there's things you can't, right, that they can interrupt. But I think if we're doing our regular job, I think if you are available, even if those moments, those few minutes, I think is key. your kids are going to really look up to that and really enjoy that you are spending time with them, even if it's just that 5 minute interaction.
That's good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So tell me about a recent decision that you've had to make that required both business discernment and spiritual sensitivity at the same time.
All right. So
if you're serious about building a business that honors God and multiplies kingdom impact, I've got something just for you. It's called Faith-Driven Success, a free resource designed to help you align your faith with your business strategy so you can grow with confidence, clarity, and conviction. You'll learn how to put biblical principles into action and start leading with bold purpose in every area of your work. Download your free copy today at biblicalgrowthstrategies.com. That's biblicalgrowthstrategies.com and start building success that actually lasts.
Something that happened, it's not recently, something that happened last year, and I think it's good that I share this, is that maybe there's a lot of agency owners that can relate, or business owners, is that we had to let go of 6 or 7 people literally within a month and a half because they didn't align with our core values, right? And these were individuals that, I mean, some of them did align in the beginning, but then after, one person started talking bad about the company, and then that person started talking with the other team member, and then it just became a whole problem, right? And then we sat down, the ops manager and us, sat down and said, okay, what are we going to do? Right? Literally. So we said, hey, like, he's a Christian too. He's a believer. And I said, hey, what would Jesus do in this scenario? Right? Literally. I mean, would Jesus allow this person to act a certain way? Would this, so we started really like comparing our faith and what we believe and what our core values, what we stand for. And we started noticing, like, man, this guy breaks all of our core values. This person breaks 2 of our core values. So we had to make the tough decision. We prayed about it and we say, look, we're going to have to do it. And then little by little, we just started letting go of those individuals. But the good thing is that once we did that, we saw how God replaced that bad situation, because it hurt us, of course. And now we have a lot of team members that are aligned with our core values. And even some of them are Christian, which we didn't even know, because we hire anyone, of course. But it's crazy how once you make that tough decision, something beautiful can come out of it as well.
That's perfect. So when we talk about what we're building, one of the things we also look at is the legacy we leave, the impact we're going to make. So how do you view this concept of legacy, not just in terms of business, but also in faith, family, influence? So when you think about legacy, what's the legacy you're wanting to leave?
Yeah, I think when it comes to legacy, I mean, I think that some people will forget you. I mean, I hate to say it, it is the truth, right? But I think if there's anyone, like, if there's a group of people that I don't want them to forget about me, is my family, right? I want my family to always remember me. And yes, of course, if there's a group, a tribe, right, and they want to remember me, I want them to remember me that I loved people, right? I think that, I mean, Jesus' greatest commandment is love your neighbor, right? I mean, love your God, right? Love your God as, okay, I'm getting it wrong here. Love God, right? And then love your neighbor is the second greatest commandment, right? Am I mistaken? Is that correct?
Yep. Love the
Right.
Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength.
There you go. So that's the greatest commandment.
Yep.
And then love your neighbor is the second greatest, right?
Yep.
Right. So when you read that in the text, love your neighbor, it's not necessarily saying love your neighbor, but it's also saying your neighbor. If you read the Greek or whatnot, it's your friends, it's whoever you associate with, right? So I think what I want to be remembered of is a person that, man, he loved on people, right? And he really cared about people. He had empathy and he really cared. And first with my family, of course, and then after that with the community that. And someone that really inspired others as well. I think that my bio, right? If you go into my Instagram bio, is my mission is to be a person of value. That's my personal mission. How can I be a personal, a person of value to you, right? Whether it's in the business world or personal life. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I want to be remembered for.
That's good. And what have you learned about mentorship? Whether, you've had the privilege of mentoring others, you've also been mentored yourself. Obviously, you mentioned Josh earlier, and Josh has mentored you and I on the agency side. But what have you learned in regards to mentoring, both as a recipient and as somebody who has been mentoring? And what do you find is the value there?
Yeah, I would say the biggest value is that there's always going to be people that are ahead of you, in whatever aspect, whether in your spiritual life, whether in the business world, there's always going to be someone that's ahead of you. And in life, I think if you want to succeed in whatever area, whether your spiritual life, whether in business, you definitely need to find those mentors, right? That are open, right? If you're in a church, like seek for spiritual counsel, right? Um, in the multitude of counsel, there's wisdom, right? The Bible verse that talks about that, right? So I think the more counsel you have with the right people, of course, that's where you're going to be able to grow, right? And I think in regards to receiving, when you receive mentorship, what you learn is you learn to be humble, right? Because a lot of times you might not even agree with that mentor, right? Because you don't see the picture, you don't see why he's telling you that. But I think you learn how to be humble. You learn how to um, learn correction too. Maybe correction doesn't is not always a nice thing, right? So once you learn from a mentor, then you start growing, right? You start receiving what that mentor is giving you, and then you start growing as well. And then little by little, the more you read, the more mentors you have, then you become a mentor. I think that it's kind of like a two-way stream, right? You're receiving, and then now you got to give. And I think that as a mentor myself, I have seen that most of the stuff that I'm sharing has come from my mentors, right? Has come from the books that I've read, has come from experience. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, good. So we're going to go into some lightning round here, just some random stuff. So what's the one business tool you absolutely can't live without right now?
Slack.
Okay. Favorite book or verse that keeps you anchored?
So, favorite verse is Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path.
Fantastic. One failure or obstacle that actually became a blessing in disguise.
Say that again. Sorry, I didn't catch it.
One failure or obstacle that actually became a blessing in disguise.
Ooh. Um, hmm. Gosh, that's a tough one. So I was sick many years ago, 2016. It was related to a health condition, right? And not nothing big. It was just more environmental. But it actually became a blessing because I started eating more healthier. I started eating healthier, and after 7 months, I was healed. Of course, God healed me, but I realized that food is medicine after
Hmm,
that.
good. Most underrated spiritual habit for an entrepreneur.
Um, Singing worship songs every day.
Good. The one sentence you would tell your 25-year-old self.
Don't be afraid to be different.
Good. So, John, what word of encouragement would you give to any other kingdom-minded entrepreneur that's listening today that feels stuck or absolutely unseen right now?
I would tell that person not to, don't feel that what you're doing is like, in other words, don't judge yourself. I think that's the biggest thing I would tell is that don't feel, just whatever you feel God is calling you to do it. And don't allow others to dictate what you're feeling. Because remember, there is a mission and a calling in your life that's specific to what God wants you to do. And a lot of times we judge ourselves or judge our moments, and we're very hard on ourselves and we don't really act on it. So I think is learning not to, I mean, you can get advice from others, but in the end, if God spoke to you something, make sure that you take action on it.
That's good. And then where can people connect with you if they want to learn more about you, your companies, or just want to go deeper in finding out more about John?
Yeah, so I post a lot on Instagram. So the handle is it's John Henao. You can just find me there. On Facebook as well, if you look for me under my name. The website is GoStaffy.com if you're interested in staffing. But like I said, I want you just to first know who I am and what not. So I would say go to my Instagram or Facebook, and you're going to get a lot of tips, videos, regarding leadership and self-development and entrepreneurship, and a lot of great videos there. So.
Absolutely. And John, just like your hat says, and I pick up your swag, every time I'm at conference with you. Go accomplish more. He's going to challenge you to do that. So John, thanks for being with me on the podcast today. It's been great having this conversation with you.
It's been great, Carl. I really appreciate you inviting me. And like I said, my goal here is that someone can take at least one action item from this so that they can make their life better by just taking that action item. So
fantastic. And our audience, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Called to Build. And we look forward to having you on our next episode.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Called to Build. If this episode challenged or encouraged you, take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another faith-driven leader who's ready to rise. To go deeper, visit carlwillis.com for tools, training, and resources that will help you lead with purpose, steward with wisdom, and build what outlasts you. Remember, you weren't called to compete, you were called to build. Until next time, keep building what matters.